Continuing the Lacy round ripple blanket, we are on row 8, or round 8. We're at the very end of round 8, and I've just made my last shell of 5 double crochets separated by chains. And I'm about to make my last it's my last V-stitch. It's a double crochet, chain 2, and double crochet in that last V-stitch. And I've come back around to the very front again. Now remember, at the beginning of that row I had made 4 chains, 3 of which counted as a double crochet. So that third chain there is where I want to slip stitch to make the beginning of that round. So that completed round 8. Now round 9 is going to begin in this shell of 5 double crochets. And what we're going to be doing on each of those shells is we're going to be making 3 chain 3 loops. But we're going to start with the second loop. So I just slip stitched to end that row into the third chain here. I'm going to slip stitch into this chain, this next chain. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the next double crochet, and then I'm going to slip stitch into this space between those double crochets. Now I am in the second space of the 4 spaces. Now I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to single crochet into that space. So what I did is I had to slip stitch a few times to get across to the second space, so I'm not starting in the first space. This will set us up for the next row. Now I'm going to chain 3 and single crochet into the next space, and chain 3 and single crochet into the next space, which is the last space of that shell. And now on the rounds where I have these loops, I'm going to chain 1 before we do anything in the panels. So I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to make my V-stitch, which is a double crochet and 2 chains and a double crochet. And then again chain 1. There'll be a chain 1 on either side of those. Now I'll single crochet into the first space of the shell, chain 3, single crochet into the next space, chain 3, single crochet into the next space, chain 3, and then single crochet into the last space, so that you end up with 4 single crochets separated by 3 of these chain 3 loops, and that will be done in each of these 5 DC shells going around. And then those will be separated by a chain and a V-stitch, where the V-stitch is a double crochet and 2 chains and a double crochet. So we're just going to continue to do that around row for row, or round 9. I set up row 9 this way so that when you start row 10, it starts you on the middle loop. And that was a deliberate choice that I made. And I thought it would look better to, at some point we were going to have to slip stitch across, and I thought it looked better to slip stitch across the shell rather than wait until row 10 or round 10 and have to slip stitch across a whole loop. I thought that would look a little goofy. So it doesn't make sense at the time when you're doing it, but it is a setup for later. I chained 1 too many there. Chain 2. And I'm very sorry about the quality of these videos. I hope to at some time make all of these better and actually edit them down and make one video that's edited without all this extra going around the round, because I don't think you really need to see me doing each of these things 12 times. I think it's a little bit much. But I have not had a lot of time. But a lot of you had been asking for round 9, and I understand that. I understand the confusion about that slip stitching over and getting everything lined up right, because if you don't get started in that second space, just for the first one, ongoing, you're going to just go across the front of each of these shells in the usual way. But that very first one, if you don't get started on the second space with the second loop, then it's going to kind of have you set up wrong for row 10, for round 10. It is very difficult to flip from something that's a back and forth to something that's in the round and swap language from row to round. And I apologize when I say row instead of round on this. Now, as you continue to make these rows, now that we're to the point where our lace panel is full size, the lace panel is not going to change now throughout the rest of the blanket. It will be the other panels that have the panel with the ripple panels that will be growing to make the blanket bigger in circumference now. The lace panels will just continue like this, and they will be just the two types of things repeated. You'll have one round will have the shell with the 5 double crochets, and then the next will have the three chain loops. And always on the 3 chain loops, you'll always have a 1 chain between the 3 chain loops and the ripple panel, which in this case is still just a V-stitch because we haven't really begun in earnest the panels yet. But we've already begun that pattern of having a chain between the panel and the lace panel on those rounds. I also apologize for the video quality. I don't have a good setup yet. I need a better tripod sort of situation and don't have it yet. And I think if I had a better way to support my camera, then, and it was a little further away, I think it wouldn't be adjusting so much to stay focused. Alright, so I'm back around to, this is where we started, and we had started with 2 loops on this. Here's the 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces of the original shell. And So we started with the second loop, and I just made my last V-stitch and chain. So now I'm going to single crochet into the first space of that shell and chain 3, and then I'm going to join back into the single crochet that I made at the beginning of the row. Here is where I had done all my slip stitching across to this point, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that single crochet to join up to now I have completed row 9. So I'm beginning row 10 with the center loop, which is where I want to be. I want to slip stitch into that loop, and then I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that will be my first double crochet and chain of a new shell that I'm going to start in. So the shells are going to be made into the center loops on each lace panel. So now I'm going to make a double crochet, chain, double crochet, chain, double crochet, chain, double crochet, so that, of course, my first double crochet is really just chains, but I'm going to end up with 5 double crochets, the first one being made by chains. So these shells will be made in each center loop going across. And then on this row, when you make shells, there are no chains between the lace panel and what will become the ripple panel. Now the ripple panel is still just a V-stitch at this point. We haven't added any stitches. So I'm just doing a double crochet and a chain 2 and double crochet. But that's it. You will continue like that around and join up, and that's, it starts to get kind of repetitive after this. I will explain what you'll be doing when you do future rows and you begin the ripple panel. The pattern for that is, again, always remember that on shell lace rows there will be no chains between the shell and the ripple panel. On the loop rounds, there will always be, after the loops, there will be a chain before the panel, and then a chain before you go back to the loops again. Then, always remember, you will be skipping the first double crochet and the last double crochet on the panel each time. Right now it's just a V-stitch, so you're skipping the only stitch that's there. But going forward, you will always, when you start having multiple stitches, you will always skip the first and the last stitch of the panel. Then the center stitches, the center V-stitch basically of the corner, can either be just one double crochet with the 2 chains and a double crochet, or it can be 2 double crochets and the 2 chains and 2 double crochets. So follow the written instructions that I've referenced in the comments or in the description to see further instructions on how to do that. But it is just basically very repetitive at that point. But with those tips, I think you can see the pattern developing, and you should be able to get the pattern down, and then you probably can just work on this without even having to look at the instructions. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you very much for watching.